Can you think yourself out of an addiction? Damn right we can, Paul. Watch me. Wait, what? We can't? Can you think yourself out of an addiction? Guys, I love this topic and I'm excited for this video. And let me clarify what I mean when I say, can you think yourself out of an addiction? What that is relying principally on knowledge alone to solve this drinking problem. Another thing that I mean with that is, what are the ways, your ingenious ways of moderation techniques, such as I'm not drinking before 5 p.m., I'm only drinking on the weekends, and I sure as hell am not drinking alone. Right? So, and let's not deny that at face time, those are seemingly good ideas. Another way you can think yourself out of this is to justify your drinks. Say, hey, I had a great workout today, or I got all my yard work done. I earned a couple drinks. So again, is knowledge enough alone? So does thinking work? Can you read all the quit lit books from cover to cover in a row? Will that alone help you depart from an addiction? Okay, so the answer is both yes and no, but mostly a hard no and a little bit of yes, which we'll cover shortly. And in fact, there's a line in the big book where they say if advice, if suggestions, if knowledge alone worked, then there wouldn't be a big book. There wouldn't be this YouTube video. There wouldn't be a podcast, and there wouldn't be any self-help books. Chris, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Paul, I spent a lot of my time fighting myself. I was wondering why all of my ideas weren't working. Let's dig in and find out a little bit more about this.
Before we get started, we need to recognize one thing, and I'm going to go slow with this. It's recognizing that your thinking, mine as well. It's our thinking or your thinking that got us into this pickle in the first place. So I'm going to ask you a question. Let's make a pact real quick. Can we take off the ego hat for just a second and recognize that some of those brilliant ideas actually led us to this moment right now to be watching this video? Cool. Chris, you on board with that too? All right, let's do it. All right, so here are the main reasons why you can't think yourself out of a drinking problem. And actually, let's reframe this question. The real question is, how do I feel better internally without an external substance, alcohol? So those two questions are basically interchangeable. All right, Chris, ready to do it? Sweet. And can I get the, you're good, man. Let's try it. Let's do like a sound effect. Like, more like, I'm a fan of ninjas. I love Ninja Turtles when I was a kid. Could we get like a shooting, that's it. Nailed it. And then maybe like a bow staff for you. Yeah, like a nunchuck. That's the one. Awesome. All right. Number one, the reason why you can't think yourself out of a drinking problem is because the brain functions best on predictability. Yes, the brain hasn't quite hit that evolutionary leap, which I think we're going through right now. So the brain, when we're thinking of how to mitigate this inner distress or this emotional pain, it's gonna go to the backlog of data. So it's a snapshot from right now, this moment, and everything in the past, right? And most likely, since usually you're in fight or flight mode, you might not know it, but the body is in fight or flight, it's gonna go to what worked the best. Again, it's a predictability machine. The brain is not good at scouring the unknown, something that hasn't been tested as a tool, right, to feel better. So in the past, and even though alcohol may not be working right now or it hasn't worked the last 400 times you drank, the mind is still gonna go to alcohol to solve these inner pains right now. The mind isn't quite ready to explore yoga, acupuncture, or a float tank right now, right? You just don't have that data of evidence that it works. But alcohol, it's true, it's tried, and even though it may have backfired us the last couple times we drink, the last year, the last decade or two, that's why you can't think yourself out of an addiction, because it only goes into the known. And the second reason why you can't think yourself out of addiction is thinking is always in your comfort zone. So your happy alcohol-free life exists outside of your comfort zone. And when you're thinking of ways to moderate or to solve this drinking problem, you're only going to be thinking in your comfort zone. The third reason you can't think yourself out of a drinking problem is you can't use the same level of thinking to depart from an addiction that got you into the addiction. Another way to say that is you can't heal with the same level of consciousness that you had when the drinking problem took hold. A third way to say that is you can't heal in the same environment you became sick in. The fourth reason is, you guys, departing from alcohol requires action. And thinking is always knowledge, so this thinking is always secondary to action. And try to find quit-lit books that are heavy on the action. The fifth reason is, you guys, we've reached a moment where knowing isn't enough. You have to know how. Again, that's action. The sixth reason is monkey see, monkey do. We are biologically wired to do what other people do, right? Monkey see, monkey do. And this is almost toxic in our Facebook news feed, how much alcohol is normalized, right? So we see people in movies, on TV, online, all around us drinking. There's an unconscious part of us that says, wait a second, I should be able to do that too. But that's not the case. The seventh reason is thinking is Newtonian. What I mean by that, when we try to think ourselves out of an addiction, which is us doing it all alone, and this is also another reason why you can't do this alone. So when we rely on the underdeveloped human brain, then we're almost cutting ourselves off from whatever the magic is that created this, it, he, or she. We're almost siphoning off all that magical energy, those life synchronicities, those random encounters when we meet a high school friend that also decided to quit drinking. So when we try to do it alone with our thinking mind, we're not relying or we're not tapping into a pretty great intelligence. The eighth reason why you can't think yourself out of a drinking problem is the human mind, our thinking is flawed. We have an average of 60 to 90,000 thoughts per day, and science is showing that most of them are wrong. Chris, I can tell you personally that this mind here has thought of some pretty stupid shit. We just haven't hit that evolutionary leap in consciousness yet. And again, I think we're doing it as a human species right now. If you want to test this statement that human thinking is flawed, just turn on the news. Chris, anything you'd like to add?
All that sounds familiar, Paul. I'm a pretty intelligent guy, and I just knew that there was a way that I could figure this out. I came up with so many ideas, but it seemed like if I gave them enough time, they'd just fall flat. I think the problem was that all the work that I was doing was between my ears, but I wasn't really putting anything into action.
Hey guys, don't take our word for it here. The ultimate personal litmus test, if you can think yourself out of this, is your own plans to moderately drink. Okay, so one of my favorite questions to ask interviewees on the 277 episodes that I did was, did you ever moderate, and what were those plans, and did it work, right? So 277 people said, yes, we tried to moderate, and no, none of them worked. Out of 277 people. So all you gotta do is just think about your plans. You guys, I had this brilliant plan that I only allowed myself to drink 3 days per week, and that was down from like 6 to 7. So I got a calendar, put it up on the door, got a red pen, and I started my plan. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days in a row. Good, we're on the plan. But I wanted to keep going, and I drank Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of the next week. So you can already see the fallacies in this plan. I did 6 days in a row. So then what I had to do, think my way out of this, I said, all right, I'm gonna go 8 days without alcohol to make up for the 6 days in a row. Then I'll still be back on plan. And that plan worked pretty good for 2 more days. And then the calendar came off the door. Chris, what do you got?
Okay, so here's a moderation story that I thought was foolproof. It seems like whenever we'd go out on the boat, I'd get myself into trouble because I would overdo it. Drinking my crappy light beer, I just always overdid it. So I figured if I get some of these nice craft, seasonal beers for the summer, that I'd be able to sip those naturally and normally like everybody else was doing. So as we were loading up the cooler, I'd put the nice fancy beers in the cooler with the other drinks, but just in case of an emergency, I'd load up the ski locker or some other part of the boat with about a case of my crappy other beers, just in case. So while we're sitting around the boat with other people, I would casually sip those nice fancy beers just like a normal person. But when everybody was swimming off the back of the boat, I would come in, or if they'd go tubing on somebody else's boat, I'd run back into my boat and chug my beers just to make sure that I was getting enough. It always seemed like the plan worked until we're on our way back to the dock and we'd be hitting some waves and you could hear 15 empties rattling around in my ski locker.
One time I tried to leverage technology with my drinking so I could legally drive, and I was in Old Chicago's and I downloaded a BAC tracker app, and I was tracking my drinking with the app, and that worked pretty well for 15 minutes. And here are some great ways from our community members that they've tried to moderate their drinking.
So one way I tried to control my drinking was by only drinking on the holidays. So Boxing Day in Canada, it's on.
I tried to think myself out of drinking by Stop if you've heard this one. Only drinking beer. I went as far as to write myself a contract that I would only drink beer. Needless to say, I was in breach of contract.
I somehow managed to convince myself each and every day that I had earned my drinking, that I somehow deserved it, because I had mommed so hard all day. I rocked the tot lot, music class at the library, play dates, you name it, it fueled my excuses.
Ooh, that's a good question. Moderation. I would moderate by not going home right away after work. I would try and either go to the gym or go over to a friend's house to hang out for a little bit. Something to get myself out of that golden hour of the drive home. All of a sudden the addiction hit and all I wanted to do was drink.
My best moderation story is I was invited to a group birthday dinner and I had decided I was not going to drink that night. Well, I ended up in jail that night, so moderation does not work.
Don't keep any alcohol in the house because alcoholics drink at home and alone. Don't go to the bar until 9 p.m. because then you can only drink for 5 hours before the bar closes. Only drink on days where football is playing, which is going to be Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but also Friday because it's Friday. Don't drink anything but beer, except for shots don't count. Neither do Irish car bombs.
So on weekends, if you wanted to drink before 5 p.m. on vacation or even at home, you would drink beer, because that's not really alcohol.
Moderate your drinking. Okay, I used to think that if I was cooking Italian meals, I'm Italian, I could have red wine because I was cooking and using it while I was cooking. So it didn't really count because you have to eat and wine goes in the food. And then sometimes I use my crock pot and I use beer to marinate. I make carnitas, really good. And so I'd put a beer in there, but there was also a beer for me while I was cooking. So cooking in the kitchen, I drank because it was okay because I was cooking.
Things I did to moderate my drinking. I switched to 6-packs. I switched to 40 ounces. I switched to shooters. I switched to 32 ounces. I switched to 24 ounces. I switched to 16 ounces. I took naltrexone. Still drank. I went to the bar an hour before last call. That worked once. Oh, we can't moderate, y'all. It's not gonna work.
Another trap with thinking is it always postpones happiness to the future. You can't think yourself into happy. So you might be saying, cool, Paul and Chris, you don't recommend thinking your way out of this, so then what? Well, we've got many upcoming videos to address just that. But the skinny of it is, if you are gonna ditch the booze, you need to do it with other people. Okay, let's talk about the yes, you can think yourself out of a drinking problem. For me to say that you can't think yourself out of a drinking problem is a little bit like me saying that everybody who jumps out of an airplane without a parachute dies. That's not true, right? Sometimes the airplane hasn't taken off yet, it's still on the ground. It's not that far of a fall. Sometimes people get really lucky and they fall and land in water. Sometimes they land in trees. So not everybody who jumps out of an airplane dies. And there are some people who can think themselves out of a drinking problem. I know I did for a little bit of time, right? The key here is it's not sustainable in the long run. Also, if you do think yourself out of this drinking problem, it's Newtonian. What I mean by that, it's third dimension. It's matter, moving matter. You have to make everything happen on your own. It's lonely, it's painful, it's incredibly hard, and it seems like life is just adding up against you. And again, this method can work until life happens. COVID, right? Until a pandemic hits. What then? If you're relying only on the thinking mind, you've got one tool, and it's flawed. Another big reason I don't recommend thinking yourself out of a drinking problem is the unconscious mind, brain and body, which is, we often differentiate the two between a brain and body, of the mind and body, but it's really the same. The unconscious mind is almost being programmed that yes, we can drink. Thank you, big alcohol in society, right? It's almost being programmed that yes, we can drink faster than we can reprogram the unconscious mind, right? With the conscious mind. So studies show that after age 35, 95% of your operating system is all unconscious behavior. So you've got 5% of your conscious mind saying, I'll never drink again. I'm thinking my way through this, brilliant plans. And that goes well until that 5% butts up against the 95%. Chris, can I get some numbers up there? Switch them? Yeah, nailed it. Good stuff, man. All right. So in this video and other videos, you've probably heard us say drinking problem. Okay. And for me, it was a big problem, right? I had a failed suicide attempt in 2014. Physically, I was falling apart. I was dying, right? But let's start to reshift the word problem. Again, a drinking problem, what that is, it's trying to nudge you in a direction. And I ignored those nudges for a long time. And that's where it gets extra painful. That's where life is happening to me. It was the victim mentality. But what's happening with an addiction, as I've said in other videos, it's pushing you in a direction. It's representing part of your personality that is in need of the deepest, most care, quality, attention, and healing, okay? So it's not a drinking problem. And right now, it could be labeled as is, but when I look back at my drinking problem, it's what got me here today, and I wouldn't change a thing. Chris, anything else you want to add before we close it out?
Yeah, Paul, I think it's important to note that our thinking mind doesn't want us to change. To some extent, we've trained ourselves that if we have any sort of anxiety or discomfort, that there's a way out of it. That impulse to drink doesn't care about the long term. It only cares about the moment that we're in. What we know works is all that we care about, even if it might be harming us down the road. When we talk about getting out of our comfort zones, this is it. In future videos, we're going to talk about ways that we can get through that discomfort, but not just get through it, but to thrive in it and to use that discomfort to help us grow. Growth is in the discomfort. It might be tough at first, but we can do this.
Okay, I don't know where I heard this or who said it, but I absolutely love it. And that is, your new life will cost you your old life. I love that. This journey is more about letting things go. And the best way to do that is to take your thinking mind out of the past and in the predictable known future, which is always a copy and paste of the past into the future, and place your energies into this moment right now. The best way that I've found to do that is to get outside into nature, be calm, and be still. A good way to do that is start putting your efforts into the 5% of consciousness, right? Be more conscious of the unconscious self than ever. When the mind or the brain starts to intervene with these brilliant and elaborate plans that have no holes in them, right? Start to question that. Start to say, wait a second, okay, here's those familiar loops of ways that I can solve this with the thinking mind. So I'm so good at saying the video's over and keeping going. People who might struggle with this are high achievers and also people with sports backgrounds. And another reason why this is difficult, because every other problem in life that we've encountered, we just think ourselves through it, right? We go to YouTube, we read books, we think of ways that we can solve these problems, but with an addiction, it doesn't work. Cool, guys, and before we go, be sure to... Here, Chris? Subscribe button here. All right, dude, come on. I know it's not there or there. I know, come on, dude, come on, Chris, dude. I know you're messing with me. I don't know YouTube all that well. It's down here, right? All right, come on, let's put it down there. It's here, right? Where the heck? Come on, right here. All right, subscribe. Cool, Chris? We good? You guys see what I'm working with here? Chris kills me, man. He's always busting my ball. I said plural, and I got to switch that too. All right, let us know in the comment area if it's worked for you. I would love to read comments of ways, these ludicrous and asinine ways that we've tried to think ourselves out of a drinking problem. I mean, some of these are absolutely hilarious. They're incredible. So in the comment area, I want to read them. Thank you so much for helping us grow this channel. Let us know what videos you want to see. Again, let's get that chatter and the dialogue. It's time to shred the shame. By simply liking the video, the stars are not going to fall out of orbit, and stars don't orbit anything, I don't think, right? But your life people aren't going to know, right? What I'm saying is you're brave enough to show up on this channel as a viewer, but let's slowly take that a little further. Like the video. This is if you like it, write comments, start connecting with others on the similar pathway as you in the comment area. All right, guys, take care.
know that if I put on my tie-dye socks and my running shoes and I get away from all of this mess that the kids have made, get on the treadmill, run for 99.9 miles, I know I won't want to drink afterwards. All right, 99, made it, made it. Now I can just hydrate after my run.